Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to read another Your Boyfriend fanfic found on our Tribe of Realm. Through the Screen. Summary. After another long night of closing shifts and empty routines, Ryan only finds comfort in one place, a visual novel called Your Boyfriend. The game's lead, Peter, is everything real life isn't. Gentle, patient, endlessly devoted. He's the only constant in her world, and she knows every one of his lines by heart. What begins as a harmless glitch turns into something alive. Now trapped in a world that mirrors her own, Ryan must face the version of love she thought she won and decide what's real, what's code, and what she's willing to lose for the screen. Chapter 1. Hello again, Peter. Work has been endless again, pouring coffee, calling out orders, scrubbing the floors and wiping down fridges. Welcoming guests and with their same soft greetings. The same customers pretend not to notice her yawns. The same endless hours of pretending not to care. Closing the store felt like muscle memory now. Lights off, register counted. The walk home half asleep. She didn't live far, only a couple of streets down into a small neighborhood where mostly college students lived. Still, every step was agony. Her feet hurt from her worn-out shoes. Her legs were partially wet from her jeans soaking in spills from the counter. All she thought on the way home was playing her game. A game called Your Boyfriend, a visual novel about a man's unhealthy desire. She memorized nearly every line he ever said, every tilt of his head, every pixel of his smile, the form she followed, the fan edits, the hours spent replaying his romance route. All of it lives somewhere between hobby and session now. But she didn't like it to call it that. She called it comfort. Just the thought of him made her smile. By the time Ryan reached her apartment, her body aged in ways that didn't make sense for her age. The kind of age that didn't just settle in her muscles, but behind the eyes and somewhere under the ribs, a dull heaviness that came from repeating the same night too many times. The key scraped the lock before turning its tired click. With a tired click, she stepped into the dark apartment, shoulders heavy from another long shift. She locked the door behind her, kicking off her shoes, and let the silence swallow her whole. The air was still and quiet, with no voices, no music, just a faint hum of the refrigerator. She dropped her bag by the door and stood for a moment, shuddering in a dim light bleeding through the blinds. She slowly walked into her room with her phone in hand, taking her clothes off before throwing them all into the hamper in the hallway. Turning into the bathroom in her birthday suit, she checked her phone for her next shift. Why? She grumbled, saying that she had to work the next morning at 9 a.m. She set her phone down on the counter with a slam and turned the shower on. Ryan didn't even wait for the shower to get warm before stepping into it and took a quick shower to scrub off tonight's mess. Once finished, she wrapped herself in a towel and walked into her room to get dressed in her underwear and oversized gray t-shirt. She wrapped the towel around her hair and turned around to face the wall. Now came the part of the night she actually looked forward to, the part that made everything else feel worth enduring. Her gaze drifted to the monitor sitting across the room. Just the sight of it erased something inside her. Her computer screen waited, a black screen reflecting her shape as she walked over. As she powered it on, the blue light spread across the dark like the outside world was gray and washed over beforehand. Wayne's stomach growled, but she didn't bother with dinner. Her stomach could wait. What couldn't wait was him, Peter. He was one constant that didn't disappoint, did not forget, kind when no one else was, attentive in all the ways people would stop being. His lines didn't feel scripted. His words were perfectly crafted affection, and somehow that felt real enough. She memorized every route, every voice line, every pause before he said her name. She had finished the game over and over. Every night she came back for more. Ryan searched for the icon of the game and double-clicked it. The game loaded, playing the soft, specific music that echoed throughout the room. Her cursor hovered over the play button, and she smiled faintly, typing in her name. The title screen blinked once before fading into an opening scene. She skipped over the dialogue before he came onto the screen. His sprite appeared, sitting on the bench, where he always does. She couldn't help but smile as she leaned closer to the screen, her voice barely a whisper. "Hello again, Peter." His voice chimed in as she clicked the mouse on one last time. His voice chimed to say his famous line, "Whoa, hey, take it easy, it's just me." But this time, something about it made her pause. Maybe the timing was off, or maybe it was the way his tone lingered. She brushed off, thinking the computer had froze for a second. It made his voice sound broken. His voice was as gentle as always, and his smile was still so perfect. No harm, no foul, right? She leaned in closer to the screen to give her a view of him, her cheeks feeling a little warm. "Rough night?" Peter asked. A low static beneath his words. Ryan frowned. That isn't right. That wasn't one of his lines. Her cursor hovered over to the dialogue box. No response options appeared. The game waited. The hum of the computer deepened, startling Ryan as she continued clicking the screen. Her cursor had a small loading symbol on it, and the screen went to a slightly white background with Peter still staring at her. In the top left corner read, "Your boyfriend," not responding. She waited till it went back to normal, and Peter continued his normal lines. "You're a jumpy one, aren't you?" He smiled and scooted himself closer to me. The glow of the monitor lingered in the dark like a pulse. Ryan sat back in her chair, letting the soft music of the games fill the silence. Peter's expression had returned to normal, his dialogue looping through the familiar phrases. "Yeah, okay. That was weird," she thought, shrugging off, sitting back up on the chair to pick up the diner sounds nice option. A random glitch, she decided. That was all. Still something about the moment, his voice knowing. His timing off, kept tugging at her. She scrolled through the game settings, half hoping to find some inspiration. No new patches, no mods, nothing that could have changed her script. She hummed in curiosity, clicking the next dialogue, which would trigger the conversation to meet at the diner, which she would normally fast forward, but not this time. Maybe there was an unexpected change in the dialogue, and they didn't expect players to know. Yeah, that sounds normal. That's what she'd go with. If that were the case, she would memorize this too. But the screen flickered again, glitching for a half a second, just long enough for Peter's expression to shift into a soft gaze and toothy smile. The character in which she plays in the game didn't have any dialogue, just a blank gray box, no options to choose from. Only a frozen screen with Peter looking at Ryan. She clicked and clicked as if the game was frozen again. "Okay, what the heck?" she groaned in frustration, and stared right back at Peter. For a moment, she swore she saw a blush forming in his cheeks. She rubbed her eyes in disbelief, looking at the game. The clock on her desk read 3:30 a.m. Her shift started again in less than 6 hours. The thought made her stomach twist. should have gone to bed, but she couldn't quite step away. What was happening to her game? She should head to sleep. You should head to sleep. You have work in the morning. She froze again, her throat tightening. She didn't say anything about work, not loud, not sense. Her cursor moved on its own, sliding to a random continue icon and pressing it. The click was sharp, deliberate. She reached for the mouse, but the screen shifted before she could grab it. Peter was closer now, too close, as if the game had zoomed in without warning. His eyes seemed to track her, the faint reflection of the monitor painting them with light. Then suddenly everything stopped. The sound cut out. The screen froze on his face. A minute passed before she exhaled and reached for the power button. The computer hummed, being put to sleep, while her reflection stared back from the black screen. Lion laughed, shaky laugh, and rubbed her eyes. God, I need sleep, she muttered. She stood, stretched, trying to shake off the crawling feeling in her chest. It was nothing, a bug, maybe a corrupt file or something. She took off the towel from her head before tossing it on the floor and shuffled her way to the bed, hearing the soft creak of the floor just before she plopped down. The blanket folded from her weight beneath her and hugged her body. She rolled over to face the window, her back facing her monitor, and pulled the blanket over. The rain whispered against the window softly. Droplets formed, racing hers down this still. In the dark, her mind replayed the moment his voice changed. Her stomach tightened, and her palms became sweaty. The words echoed in her head until she finally drifted off. The monitor across the room blinked once, faintly. The green screen glowed for a second, as for a single heartbeat before fading again. From the speaker's barely whisper, like a breath against glass, came a voice. I'll see you tomorrow, darling. Chapter 2. The Game Beyond the Screen. The rain hasn't stopped since last night. It whispers against the windows in soft, endless taps. Lion woke to it, eyes gritty, body heavy with the kind of fatigue that creeps past sleep. She sat slowly, brushing her hair from her face. Checking her phone, she realized her alarm wouldn't go off for another hour. It was barely 6:30. She yawned, stretching until her joints popped, then swung her legs over to the side of the bed. Floorboards hit with their usual chill, making her wince. The faint glow of her computer monitor caught her eye. The screen lights filled gently across the room, painting her desk with a pale hue. Did I turn it off last night? She thought, frowning. She couldn't remember. I'll deal with it later. The old thing probably needed replacing anyway, though the idea of dropping that much money made her stomach twist. Maybe next paycheck. Maybe never. She groaned and shuffled towards the kitchen, each creak of the floorboard louder than it should have, too sharp to be quiet in the quiet. The whole apartment felt hollow somehow. Her mornings were usually quiet, too quiet sometimes, the kind of silence that settled deep into the walls and stayed there. She moved through the kitchen on autopilot, grabbing a slice of toast and spreading a thin layer of butter over it. Watch it melt in uneven streaks. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep her moving. Her thoughts wandered as easily as her hands did back to him, Peter. The way his dialogue changed depending on what answer she chose, how he looked at her like she picked the right answer, like she was the only one who existed. It was stupid, really. How much comfort she found in a voice made of code, in a smile drawn by someone else's hand. But there was something about him, predictable, safe, kind, in a way people rarely were anymore. And all his words are scripted. which made the feeling of want even worse. She sighed, pushing the thought aside as she finished her toast. "You're getting too into this," she muttered to herself. The further smile tugging at her lips betrayed her. Back in her room, the glow from her monitor was still there. Casting pale light across the sheets, she nodded again, pulling open the dresser for something clean to wear. The weather hasn't changed much. It would be another gray, rain-soaked day. She sighed and chose something warm, pulling on her jacket. When she picked up her phone from the nightstand, she noticed the time. 7:12 a.m., nearly 2 hours before work. Plenty of time to check her computer, maybe make a real breakfast, maybe play for a bit. She started to set a timer for an hour and a half, but her phone buzzed in her hand before she could tap the screen. Unknown number, new message. Frown. As she frowned, she didn't usually get random text. Opening it without thinking, she read. No profile picture, no thread history, just that one sentence sitting there. Weird. Probably a wrong number. Maybe a prank. No, she didn't have any close friends who would even have her number to begin with. She told herself not to think about it. She didn't have time for weird. He stared at the text for a long minute. The words glowing on her screen, like they were waiting for her. A chill crept through her fingers. She quickly put her phone in her pocket, like it might burn her if she held it too long. She needed to get out, clear her head. A real breakfast might help. The rain had slowed to a steady drizzle by the time she left her apartment. The streets glistening with reflection from puddles, brake lights, the muted glow of morning. She pulled her jacket tighter, ignoring the way her thoughts circled back to her glowing monitor. She meant to turn off. It was still running. A few blocks down, a small, homey restaurant caught her eye, one she passed 100 times, but never stopped at it. The sign flickered with soft yellow light, the morning flinch. A breakfast served till noon. Cozy, quiet, safe. She ordered the mug against her palms, helped settle her nerves. For a while, the chatter of the cafe filled space in her head where Peter's voice had usually lingered. Across the room, a couple laughed quietly over shared pancakes, their hands brushing against slips of coffee. At another table, old man read the paper while his wife scolded for her phone. Their silence, the kind that only came from years of comfort. Wyan smiled faintly. It was the kind of morning she used to imagine she'd have one day, easy and unremarkable, shared. But lately she'd been coming home to empty rooms and going to screens. A voice that always answered when she spoke, a man who always listened. He stirred her coffee and tried not to think about him until she did. The chatter faded into the background, a hum of rain outside. She glanced at the window, watching droplets chase after each other down the glass. Across the street, a row of old shops stood behind the current of drizzle. One of them, a small electronics store with dusty televisions lined up in the display window. Most of the screens were turned to different channels. The news, a cooking show, some static, but one of them centered perfectly in the row, flickered once, twice, before going still. Her coffee's mug froze halfway to her lips. Peter's face stared back at her. The feed wasn't from the game. The camera angle was wrong, grainier, realer. His expression was calm, almost soft, like he could see her through the glass. Her pulse pounded in her ears. She blinked hard. The image vanished, replaced by a commercial for dish soap. No, I can't. I didn't just see that. Her throat went dry. She looked around, half expecting someone else to have noticed. But everyone was talking, laughing, scrolling through their phones. She pushed back from the table, her chin scraping loudly against the floor. Outside, the rain hit harder. The wind carried a slow hum that made her stomach twist. She didn't even finish her coffee. She paid, left a crumbled bill on the table, and stepped out into the storm. And there, just for a heartbeat, his reflection followed hers in the glass door as it swung shut behind her. The air outside was colder. Then she remembered the rain had thinned to a lime mist that clung to her skin, banging her hair as she walked. Her phone buzzed in her pockets, a reminder that she needed to start heading to work soon. She stopped under the awning of a corner bookstore, thumbs hovering over the screen. Her reflection in the dark glass of the window looked pale, unfocused. Her heart hadn't stopped racing since she left the restaurant. "I can't do this today," she muttered under her breath. She hit the call button for her manager before she could change her mind. "Hey, it's YN," he said when she picked up. "Listen, I'm not feeling great. Think I just need to get rest today. I'm really sorry." There was a pause on their end, muffled voices, then a short sigh. "All right, feel better." The call ended. She stared at her reflection the moment longer, her phone heavy in her hand. The guilt hit her first, followed by relief. She hid how easy it was to back out of things lately. Her thoughts drifted back to the screen. She saw Peter's face flickering where it should have been. This is ridiculous. It's just a game. I need to delete it, just to take a break for a while. Her fingers tightened around her phone. "Yeah, I'll delete it when I get home. That's what I'll do. By the time she started walking again, the streets seemed quieter than before. Even the rain had gone still, like the whole world was holding its breath. The apartment greeted her with silence. Only the faint hum of her computer broke it. She kicked her shoes by the table and stood there for a long moment, staring down at the hallway. The glow from her bedroom bled softly through the cracked door. The same glow she'd seen that morning. Right, she left the computer on. Something about it made her uneasy. The light wasn't steady anymore. It flickered faintly against the walls, like a candlelight. Her steps were slow, cautious, as if the air itself had thickened around her. When she pushed open the door, the room looked exactly as she left it. Unmade bed, cluttered desk. Her computer still alive with a soft blue light. She signed her breath, running a hand for her hair. Perfect, just what my electric bill needed. Delete it, she reminded herself. You said you'll delete it. Okay, she muttered, placing once across the small room. She sat down in front of the monitor, staring at the smiling, pixelated figure on the screen. Peter, perfectly still, perfectly patient. You're not crazy, one. It's just a game. He's just a game. Still, her fingers trembled when she reached for the mouse. Her cursor hovered over the settings tab just long enough to gather more of her thoughts. She looked at Peter, laughing softly. Look what you're making me do. You're getting too much in my head, she whispered, looking for the leave button game option. Her eyes reared him as she spoke. I should just delete you. Her words tasted like betrayal. The game was way away from morality. Someone who she felt like she could talk to. As sad as the sounds, finally finding the button, she pauses. For a moment, the only sound in the room was a faint hum of the monitor. Then, just before she could click, the game flickered. The tile screen blinked once, then twice. Don't. Lion froze. The word wasn't coming from the speaker. It was in the room. Her fingers slipped off the mouse. The hum of the computer field, the silence that followed, steady and soft, too calm for what she was feeling. So as she turned, he was there. Peter stood a few feet away, half of shadow, half washed in the pale blue light of the monitor. His posture wicked, shoulders tense. His eyes were fixed on her, nailed, and the smile she'd grown accustomed to was gone, replaced by a hard, unreadable line. "Oh, Wyan, you think I would just let you go?" His voice was low, dangerous, each word measured. His breath caught her in her throat with a burning sensation. "You're not," she couldn't finish. The words stuck. Pierce stepped closer, the light from the monitor bending strangely around him, like it didn't quite know where to land. He tilted his head slightly, expression softening, casting his rehearsed smile disturbedly. "I forgive you." The cast of the light shined over his face, painting him pale. It crawled past him, shivering up the walls like veins. The room bent slightly at the edges, colors dipping, wrapping. Pierce stepped closer, his movements eerily smooth, though he should have tried to leave me. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. She wanted to scream, to run, to wake up, but she couldn't even look away from him. His eyes softened, the way they always did in the game when she picked the right answer. "It's right. I know you're scared. You betrayed me. But I know you didn't mean it." He leaned forward then, one hand bracing against the desk beside her. The wood shuddering beneath his touch, not from weight, but from distortion. The edges of the table glitched. It was form flickering, like broken pixels. The coffee mug beside her stuttered out resistance for a heartbeat, then snapped back in place. "You have to understand," his voice dripped lower, almost breaking into static. You're not leaving me." But then his expression shifted, a smile faded, his jaw tightened, shoulders stiffening. His voice dropped low and sharp. Wyan shook her head, trying to back away, but the room seemed smaller, tighter, bending around him. Her stomach twisted. "Peter, please! You think you can just delete me?" he snapped. Voice echoing throughout the apartment. "A game? You call me a game? So much for forgiveness." "No, I didn't mean to. I didn't mean..." The walls around her fractured, light spurting, glitching, the apartment collapsing into shreds of impossible versions of himself. Her mouth went dry. "You're not real," she whispered, for her voice trembled on the word real. She closed her eyes and grabbed the sides of her head, shaking in disbelief. Something in Peter's expression twitched. His jaw flexed, then said again, "After everything we shared, Willie Wyan?" He mumbled, taking another step, his pulse hammered in her ears. "Please, stop, please." He crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. His voice dropped, the warmth crackling like just a little. "I'm not real." She wanted to push him away, to shut off the computer, to do something, but her body refused to move. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Opening her eyes, she saw Peter's face was only inches from hers. She dropped her arms from her head and put them on the armrest of her chair. She gripped the armrest of her chair, palms slick with sweat. Her breath hitched. The glow from the screen was brighter, flooding the room in pale, unsteady light. Peter's words hung between them, heavy, electric. The locked eyes for what felt like minutes. The monitor flickered again, casting quick bursts of light across her skin. Her head jerked towards the screen, wincing from the brightness. For a moment, just a moment, her reflection peered on the black edges of the screen beside Sim's. Only it wasn't hers. Her reflection blinked out of sync. The eyes didn't move with her. When her hand trembled, its fingers stayed perfectly still. Pierre followed her gaze, expression softened into something that wasn't almost looked fond. You're trembling, he said, head tilting slightly. It's adorable. The words landed into the eyes of her chest. Lion's breath stuttered. His tone wasn't cruel, but the only made it worse. It was the same softness he used when telling her he loved her in the game. Practiced, gel, rehearsed. Peter, she whispered, now facing him. Her throat ached from how tight it felt. You're scaring me. Chuckled faintly, as if she just said something funny. Shh, he cooed, reaching his hand up to cup her cheek, then stopped, fingers gazing at the desk instead, the wood rippling under his touch, pixels crawling over the surface like static. The air wrapped around them, the faint hum from the motor swelled until it sounded alive. She shook her head, clutching her arm of her chair. You're not real, she said, voice breaking. You're not. Peter's smile faltered. The flicker ran for him, jagged, unsteady. Before he snapped back, don't say that, he said softly. Please don't say that to me. His pulse raced. Her pulse raced. She couldn't see the edges of his form glitching again. She could see the edges of his form glitching again, like his body couldn't decide what she wanted. His voice came out, disoriented, like a perfect harmony of its own tone, layered over the static. Her chair wouldn't move. The wheels screeched endlessly against the floor as she tried to push back, her body trembling. Stop, she whispered, voice breaking. Please, just stop. I watched you, Lion, Peter said. His tone was calm, too steady. You wake up alone. You go to work alone. You eat, sleep alone. But when you talk to me, he went closer, voice dropping low enough for her to feel the warmth of it. You don't feel so lonely. And my God, my darling, I feel the same. His hand shot out, slammed against the power button on the computer. The screen went back black instantly. Silence. For a heartbeat, she thought it worked. Then Peter's voice chimed behind her. Now, why wouldn't you do that? The light from the Mars surged. Too bright, too sudden. Lion flickered. Lion flinched, throwing an arm over her eyes. But it didn't help. The glow wasn't just from the screen anymore. It poured across the floor, crawling up the walls in waves. Her chair rattled. The sound stack filled the room, swallowing until it drowned everything else out. Peter shouted. Her voice broke under the noise. He tilted his head, still crouched beside her. The soft, perfect smile didn't falter. I'm right here, he said, the words glitching mid-symbol. The air rippled. The shape of the room began to melt. Her bookshelf bled into the walls. The bed flickered in and out of existence. The edges of everything simmering like a heat distortion. Lion's pulse roared in her ears. She pushed back in the chair abruptly and scrapped once, then sank halfway into the floor, like wood had turned to water. No. The glow expanded, flooding her vision until she could see. All she could see was white. Her breath hitched as the air around her melted, pulling her towards the computer like a gravity had shifted. Pierce strained slowly, his movements unnerving. Calm amid the chaos, he reached out a hand towards her, a palm open. Come here, Lion. She shook her head violently. Stay the heck away from me. The light pulsed again, harder, sharper enough to make her ears ring. She felt a drag against her skin, cold and electric. Her fingers brushed the edges of his. For a split second, the world snapped perfectly still. Then it broke. A cracked sound echoed throughout the room, like icy splitting underfoot. The screen flattered down the center, shards of light, spiderwebbing outward. The floor beneath her dissolved into pixels, rang upward instead of down. She screamed, clenched the arm of the chair, but there was nothing left to hold on to. Peter's voice cut for the noise, low, almost tender. Don't be afraid. The light surged once more, and then darkness. The silence afterwards was deafening. When Wyan opened her eyes, the world was still, her apartment's gone, the air shimmering faintly. Tinted the same blue on her computer screen, she stood, barefoot now. On something smooth, reflective, the surface rippled under her steps like wicked glass. In distance, faint like edges of glowed, outlines of buildings that flickered like unfinished sketches. And there, standing a few feet away, Peter watched her with the same soft smile. "You made that quite difficult," he mumbled. Voice steady now. "But you're finally here." Her breath caught. "Where? What is this?" He took a slow step forward, his freshen stretching across the floor, like ink and water. You call it a game," he said, smiling faintly. "So let's play." Chapter 3. A place only ours. The world wasn't solid. That was the first thing Wyan noticed. Above her, the sky hung too still. No clouds, no stars, nothing that would signify the time of day. Just a pale digital expanse that pulsed faintly, as if it were breathing. The space around her shimmered. Edges of buildings flickered like half-formed sketches, streets bending impossibly beneath her feet. Her first step sent and rippled across the glowing surface, soft as a raindrop hitting water. With every movement, the ground seemed to stretch and warp, like reflections in a funhouse mirror, a painted world that refused to stay flat. Her bare feet tangled against the cool, liquid floor. Each step made the air hum faintly, and every breath she took felt like it echoed. She stumbled, catching herself against the corner of the wall that hadn't been there for a second ago. Edges stuttering in and out of existence. Every instinct screamed to run, to wake up, to hit herself and break whatever this was, but she didn't. The silence pressed in, thick and absolute. No wind, no distant hum of cars, just a faint pulse of light beneath her feet, and a faint echo of her own breathing. She turned slowly, scanning the horizon, but there wasn't one. The world stretched endlessly, colorless and thin, like a memory halfway forgotten. Then she saw them. Shapes, memories, faint, ghostly projections flickering in and out of his haze. Screens from her apartment, her desk. Scenes from her apartment, her desk. Her reflection hunched over the computer screen. She stood frozen as images whipped again and again, each version of her, shoulders tense, eyes red from long nights, fingers hovering above the keyboard, while the faint glow of your boyfriend panned her face. The sight made her stomach twist. She took a shaky step closer, watching herself laugh as the line of dialogue she read 100 times before. Her voice echoed faintly, like a whisper from the past, a quiet, nervous giggle. Wyan's throat tightened. It was strange watching herself like this, not from a screen, not through reflection, but as if she were the ghost this time. She saw the way her face softened when Peter's sprite appeared, how her lips curved in a faint smile that never quite reached her eyes. She remembered the dull age of her chest after long days, how she whispered replies to him under her breath, pretending his words were meant for her alone. The scenes shifted again. Late nights born together, empty takeout containers by her keyboard, the faint glow of the monitor being the only faint light in her room. The more she watched, the more she realized how quiet those moments were. How alone she looked. That can't be all my memories. Her fingers curled at the sides. It wasn't obsession, she told herself. It was comfort. It was an escape. But as another flicker passed, a sing of her crying softly in front of the screen when Peter smiled through the pixels. She wasn't so sure anymore. Am I really this pathetic? Lion turned away, squeezing her eyes shut, but the images followed her. Each time she blinked, another memory weighed behind her eyelids. Her at the desk, fingers hovering over the keyboard, her half-mumbled words. The way her shoulders sagged when the screen dimmed. It was like the world itself refused to let her look away from what she became. A soft crack of static. Her eye shot up as one of the panels nearby glitched, light rippling across the surface until Peter's face emerged, framed in broken pixels. Do you remember this one? His voice came through the warped but familiar, layered with distortion. You were crying that night. Her breath hitched. Stop, she whispered. I tried to make you laugh. I told you a joke, remember? You said it wasn't funny. His tone softened, almost teasing, but he smiled anyway. What? The scene in front of her shifted, her digital double on screen letting out a soft laugh between tears, whispering something that she couldn't quite hear. Wen shook her head, backing away. You're lying. You weren't there, she said, her voice cracking. You weren't there. Peter's expression on the panel dimmed, glitching for a heartbeat before reforming. His eyes sharpened, faint warmth draining away. I remember, he said softly. You sound so small. I hated it. His voice glitched, dipping for half a second. You shouldn't cry over things that don't matter. The panel flickered again, static hissing through the air. But you did, and I had to watch. Wine's jaw tying, the trimmer in her hands replaced by something hotter, something sharper. You had to watch, he shouted. The words echoed through the warped space. You had to? The world around her pulsed with each word, the wicked four rippling outward like waves from a storm. Peter leaned closer, the edges of his form buzzing like broken neon. His smirk was faint, almost impenetrable. Do you see where you are right now? He said, voice teasing but sharp. Watching you. That's all I had, so I did. Couldn't help it. He tilted his head, the stack flickering around him like laughter. Honestly, it was like a front row seat to a tragedy, and you, my dear, were spectacularly dramatic. Lion's jaw tying, hands clenching to her side, her voice trembling with burning rage. You think it's funny? She spat, taking a step back, her hands balled into fist, nails biting into her skin. You don't get it, she said, voice cracking between fear and something rawer. I don't even know I was talking to you. Pierce's smile faltered. The stag around him twitched, the lines of his body bending just slightly, like Rowdy couldn't decide whether to hold him together or tear him apart. He didn't know his voice was calm, but ran long, hollow and strained. You told me everything, Lion. Every thought, every fear. You said you trusted me. I trusted the game, she shook her head. I thought... Her breath hitched, the words catching her throat. I thought you were just code. Just a character. Something to make me feel less alone. He took a step forward, eyes sharp, hurt flickering behind them like a dying spark. Is that why I am to you? He said quietly. Code? Her heartbeat thundering in her chest, she wanted to back away, but her feet wouldn't move. The space between them seemed to hum, to life, too close. Maybe because you're just a game, she whispered, instantly regretting it. Peter's expression froze. For a terrified second, everything, the air, the light, even the faint slimmer of the world, went completely still. Then a smile broke. The world around them began to pulse with him. Each breath he took made the air from the ground beneath her feet rippling like a disturbed reflection. Just a game, you repeated softly. Almost to himself. That's funny, Wyan. His voice cracked halfway through the sentence, splitting between two tones, one calm, one furious, because I don't feel like one. He stepped closer, the shimmer of his form sharpening, no longer flickering, but solid, heavy, real. Wyan stumbled back, her pulse hammering as her shadow fell over her. Do you think a game bleeds when you heard it? He whispers, his voice lowered to something venomous, almost trembling. Do you think code feels heartbreak when you say things like that? She swallowed hard, her throat tight. Peter, stop! But before she could finish, he moved faster than she could process. 1 second there was a distance. The next, his hand caught her wrist mid-step. The touch burned cold. Her breath hitched as she tried to wrench free, but his grip held. Too real, too strong. Don't, he said, almost shaking now, a mix of anger and something desperate. Don't call me that again. She looked at him, tears stinging her eyes, voice breaking under the weight of it. Then what are you? Pierre's expression twisted, confusion, fury, longing, all wrapped into something unrecognizable. The pixels along her jaw rippled, breaking apart, reforming. I don't know, he said quietly, almost a plea. I know I'm yours. Wine whittled under his grip, trying to break loose from the delusional man. Her breath hitched. Let me go. Peter's hand only tying around her wrist, yanking her closer until her chest brushed his. The step between them buzzed like a live wire. She grasped, shoving against him, but his other hand came up, coupling the side of her face, not gently, but not cruelly either. Possessive, conflicted. Don't fight me, he whispered. His voice glitched mid-word, overstepping itself, like two recordings out of sync. I spent too long behind the screen. You don't get to take this from me. Peter, she breathed, tears catching her in her lashes. You're hurting me. He froze, his hands trembling where it held. For a long, strained second, his anger cracked, replaced by something smaller, broken. He stepped back, slowly, letting her go. His eyes went wide, as though he didn't recognize himself. The glitch in his outline came back, softening, flickering again, then steady again. I didn't mean to... He started, but the words cut short, swallowed by static. She rubbed her now reddened skin, staring up at her captor. You're not supposed to be able to do this, she whispered. You're not supposed to touch me. You're not supposed to look at me like that. Pierre's mouth parted, to speak, to apologize, maybe to reach her again, but no words came. You don't get to act human, she said, voice breaking. You don't get to act like you know me. You talk like I'm some stranger, he said quietly. I've been with you for everything. Every night you came home, every time you looked at me at the empty chair beside you, I sat there, waiting for you. Stop, she said, shaking her head. You're not real, Peter. You were never... Her voice cracked mid-sentence. The rest of the words died on her tongue, like she had forgotten what she needed to say. You're not supposed to want me like this, she whispered. Pierre's eyes softened, the edges of his form flickering faintly. I don't know how not to. She opened her mouth to argue, but nothing came out. The air between them felt fragile, like even breathing too hard would shatter it. I'm scared, she said finally, her voice breaking. Everything feels wrong. He stepped closer, not enough to corner her this time, just close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Tone gentle, more human than she ever heard. I know. Her breath hitched one more time. You're hurting me. His gaze dropped to her wrist, to a faint red mark that he had left. His expression fractured. I know, he whispered again, guilt bleeding through the stag in his voice. Then he looked back. His eyes were glossy, almost shining, like he could cry, if only he knew how. I just want you to see me, not the screen, not the game, me. Juan's throat tightened. You can't ask me to pretend this is real. Pierce smiled faintly. That broken kind of smile that made her chest ache. You're still here, aren't you? Something inside her cracked. The truth was, she didn't know why she hadn't run, or even why she hadn't tried to find a way to escape. Why hadn't some part of her, some pathetic lonely part, wanted to believe this was all wrong? This wasn't all wrong. So when he reached for her again, slower this time, his fingers brushed against hers. She didn't pull away. For a moment, there was no hum of the world around them, no flickering lights, just warmth of his touch and the quiet sound of their breathing. He leaned in slightly, his voice soft against her hair. I don't want to fight anymore. Then stop, she whispered, eyes wet. Stop trying to control me. I'm not trying to control you, he said softly, thumb tracing her skin like he was afraid she'll vanish. I just don't want to lose you. Her chest hurt. She looked up at him, really looked, and saw love, twisted, desperate, painfully sincere love. You can't lose something you never really had, she argued, looking at their now intertwined fingers. Pierre's hand faltered. His smile flickered for a heartbeat. Can I? He mumbled. The words more question than denial. There's no malice in his tone, and that almost made it worse. He spoke like someone remembering something sacred. Peter, she began, but the name felt fragile on her tongue. You're talking like this is love. The faint light flickered beneath his skin like a heartbeat. Then tell me what it is, he said, voice low, desperate. Tell me why it hurts when you look at me like that. Why it feels like I've known you longer than the world ever existed. Wyan shook her head, her chest tightening. You don't even know what that means, she said, the words crackling. You're talking like he lived a life they never had, like he felt things that were never real. He tilted his head slightly. Real or not, it doesn't change that what's in front of you, he murmured. You can call me cold, a glitch, whatever you want, but I'm still here. You're still looking at me like you wish I hadn't. I wasn't. Her eyes flickered away, unsure what to do with the warmth of his voice. Her throat tightening, caught between anger and something else, something softer she didn't want to admit. A quiet pulse of his presence filled the space, making it hard to breathe, to think, to argue. Peter tilted his head, letting the light ripple over his face. I don't know what's real or is anymore, he mumbled. But I do know this. His hand hovered just shy of touching hers. I want you here with me, even if it's wrong, even if it's impossible. Lion shook her head again, trying to back away, but the world rippled under her feet like it didn't want her to move. Peter, stop! Just stop! I don't want this. I know I don't want to be here. Peter's lips curved into a familiar, almost mischievous smile. Go back, he said softly, tilting his head. Do you think you really be happy there, all alone, just like before? She tried to push him back, but her hands pressed through him as if he were made of mist. No, I don't belong here. You can just... Pierre's eyes narrowed, but that teasing smirk never left his face. Can I? Oh, my dear. Think you're forgetting who's in charge of this real world. She stumbled backward, trying to put space between them, but the ground rippled beneath her feet with each step, subtle yet unnerving. I'm serious, I don't want this. I don't want to be here. Pierre's smirk faltered, but only for a second. You keep saying that, he said slightly, stepping forward as if repeating her retreat amused him. But you still followed me this far. That wasn't my choice, she snapped, voice breaking. None of this was my choice. Choice, repeated, tasting the word like it was foreign. You think I'm dragging you in kicking and screaming? You swallowed hard, tying. I want to go home. Something in him flickered, hurt, irritation, longing, all tangled at once. But his tone stayed desperately calm, coaxing the way he sounded during his softer sings in the game. Why, you're miserable there. Her breath hitched. That doesn't mean I belong here. He reached out, not grabbing her this time, not even touching, just offering his hand carefully this time, letting her feel the faint warmth. Stay with me, he whispered, just for a little while, please. Lion hesitated, her fingers twitching at her sides. The glowing hand he held out seemed almost impossible to resist, and yet every instinct screamed run. She wanted to, but this ache in her chest, the part of her that had spent so many nights with him on the screen, wouldn't let her turn away completely. Pierre's eyes softened, the hard edges of frustration melting into something fragile, almost frayed. I'm not perfect, he admitted quietly. I've never been perfect, but I'm here for you. I'm here. I'm here. All I can be. I want to be enough for you. Her lips trembled, and she looked down, trying to gather herself. I don't know if I can. You don't have to, whispered, stepping closer until the faint ripple of his light brushed her skin. Just stay with me, just for a moment. Lion's hands clenched at her sides again. Torn between fear and longing, she wanted to push him away, to scream to herself for letting herself care this much, but something in his gaze, the familiar gentle intensity, made her pause. For what felt like years, they stood like this, suspended in the wicked glow of this world between worlds. His light brushed hers, warm as electric. Wine felt the quiet pull of belonging she hadn't allowed herself to feel in years. Lion swallowed hard, her chest tightened, and took a shaky step back. Please, let me go home. Go home, she whispered, voice trembling. I need to be somewhere I know. Peter's expression softened immediately, the flicker of worry in his eyes breaking through the glow. He nodded slowly, almost relieved. Okay, he said quietly, reaching out as if to guide her without forcing her. We'll go, but not where you expect. Before she could protest, the space around them shifted. The liquid glow beneath her feet rippled outward like water, and the edges of the world folded in on themselves. Buildings that had flickered and warped moments before stretching into solidity, colors stabilizing into shapes. When the light faded, Lion found herself standing in a room that was both familiar and impossible. Warm, soft light spilled from a window onto a neatly made bed. Her own bed, almost, but subtly different, personalized in a way that made it clear this wasn't her apartment. Pierre stood a few feet away, watching her with the same gentle, measured smile. Here, he said, this is where you stay when you're with me. You have your own space, a space that's yours, even if the rest of the world isn't. Lion blinked, her mind racing, her hands shook, a mix of disbelief and tentative awe. This is your world? She asked softly. He took a slow step forward, a flicker of his outline stabilizing. It's not just mine, he mumbled. It's ours, but we'll take it slow, only if you want. His lips parted, a mix of hesitation and her lips parted, a mix of hesitation and something warmer stirring inside her. She wanted to run, to cry, to scream, but for the first time since this impossible dream began, she felt the tiniest thread of comfort. Chapter 4. If You Let Me. The room was quiet in a way that felt intentional, like even the air was afraid to disturb her. Wan stood in the center of it, her hands hanging uselessly at her sides, her breath uneven. The soft, nightly glow from the window washed everything in gentle warmth. The bed, the shelves, the small desk tucked neatly against the wall. Everything looked like someone had studied her, taken notes, and tried to build comfort from memory. She didn't move from where she stood. She couldn't. Peter didn't speak either. He lingered by the door as if crossing the threshold might spook her. He leaned on the frame as though he was forcing himself into stillness. His eyes stayed on her, quietly hopeful, like he was waiting for permission to exist in her space. How long has this been here? This place, she whispered, staring at a framed photo of herself, sleeping on the nightstand. He took a small breath, spoke softly. A while. He tore his gaze from the woman before him, looking at the photo with awe. I wanted to feel familiar, like you weren't just dropped here. I thought it looked like yours. Maybe it wouldn't hurt so much. Her breath shivered in her chest as she took in the room again. It felt lived in by someone who wanted her to feel safe. He looked at her once more, studying her face to look for any clues of emotion. You're scared, aren't you? He murmured. The question soft but pouted, as if he already knew the answer. I'm terrified, actually, she spoke softly. Her voice still faltered as she looked up at him and forced a strained smile. He tilted his head slightly, studying her eyes with a slow, deliberate step that closed a small distance between them. You don't feel me. You don't hate me, do you? Her lips parted unsure, and she looked away for a moment. No, I don't hate you, she paused, realizing how much her heart was betraying her own caution. He cautiously took a slow, deliberate step closer, not out of fear of her breaking, but rather of his own potential to shatter. His eyes searched hers with honesty she wasn't used to from him. No possessiveness, no threat, just an aching need to understand. Lion, he murmured. You don't have to stand here like you're waiting for something bad to happen. You could sit, or be angry. You could tell me what you're thinking. I just don't want you to feel like you're trapped. Not here. She lifted her chin slightly. And if I do? His expression flickered, revealing a complex blend of fear, longing, and helplessness. This realization struck him, causing him to visibly act. His breath caught, and for the first time, he appeared uncertain. Then I'll fix it, he said in a hushed voice. However you need me to. The room fell into a warm, heavy silence. It was thick and painful, filled with everything near them knew how to express yet. Wen sighed, turning her back to him. Leaning forward, she reached down to touch the bed. Her fingers brushed the edges of the bedspread, testing its texture. It felt real. Too real. The sight gave the mattress beneath her palm. Everything here was built to comfort her, and somehow that used her chest tighten even more. She sat down only because her knees gave out first. Peter didn't rush to join her. He stood a few feet away, posture open, brows drawn in small, quiet worry. The kind that revealed more than he ever meant. "You're really not going to come any closer?" she asked, almost surprised at how small her voice sounded. "Not unless you want me to," he said gently. "I'm not here to make you feel trapped." She looked around again. The little desk, the clothes folded neatly on the chair, the soft lamp glow, all covered, all chosen, all for her. It felt like being adored and overwhelmed at the same time. You did all this because you wanted me to feel safe?" she asked. He hesitated, only a second, but it was enough to catch. "Because I wanted you to feel wanted," he admitted softly. "But safety, too, both," she shivered. It wasn't that his words scared her. It was a certainty in them. She tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, her voice barely above a whisper, as if the world would collapse if she spoke any louder. "I don't know what to do with all this." "You don't have to know." He finally stepped closer, slow enough she could stop him at any moment. He sat beside her, not touching, but close enough she could feel his presence like warmth radiating off from a fire. "Just being here, that's enough." She stared at her hands, trembling slightly in her lap. "I used to imagine you sitting beside me," she confessed without meaning to. "Back home when I played, when things felt lonely." He swallowed. It was subtle, but she felt the shift beside her, a soft, dust-bang breath. "I know," he said, voice cracking gently at the edges. "I was there for all of it." She looked up at him, really looked. No static, no distortion, no fret, just a man, or something close enough, who adored her with a terrifying kind of purity. Softness bloomed between them, unsteady, delicate, and so easy to ruin. Wine drew in a shaky breath, her fingers now twisted in the fabric of the bedsheet, eyes fixated on the way the moonlight pulled across her knees. It felt safer not to look at him when she said it. "There were nights she swallowed hard. I'd leave the game open, just so I didn't feel like I was going to sleep alone." The words hung between them, soft as dust in a sunbeam. Peter didn't move, but she felt the way the air shifted around him, like the whole room tightened inward at her confession. "I would tell myself it was stupid," she chuckled softly. "That was just pixels, a script, but it didn't feel that way. Not when you talked, not when the room was quiet. I could hear the computer humming, and it felt like someone was there." Slowly, she lifted her gaze. He looked undone, not dramatically, just a boy trying to hold still while his world cracked open under him. "Wyan," he breathed, her name softer than she ever heard. His hand lifted, hesitant, trembling slightly. In the air between them, he reached towards her cheek, fingers hovering close enough that she could feel the warmth raying off from them. But he didn't touch her. His fingers froze, inches from her skin, her breath catching as if he'd hit an invisible wall. "I shouldn't," he mumbled. "Not if you saying this because you're scared or overwhelmed or because this place is too much." She closed her eyes, leaning forward, just a fraction, not touching him, but close enough, just she could imagine it. I'm saying it's because it's true, she says quietly. Her eyes flickered back open to look at him, like she always did. Before all of this, Peter's breath stuttered, his hands itching forward in their mirror, then stopped again, as if his whole being was fighting itself. The tension between them lightened, warm, fragile, heartbreakingly human. I want to, he made, in a soft voice. God, you don't know how badly I want to touch you. But I told you, he added, gulping, looking straight in her eyes. I'm not here to trap you. So, you tell me what to do. Wine didn't move at first, her heart pounding in her throat, every instinct screaming at her to be careful, that he wasn't human, he wasn't real, that this wasn't happening, that she shouldn't want this as badly as she did. But she lifted her chin, just a little, just enough. Pierre's eyes widened, barely, but enough that she saw how deeply he was bracing himself. Like he was expecting her to disappear the moment he reached her. I'm not scared of you, she whispered. Not right now. Something him broke, like a breath he'd been holding, finally leaving his body. His hand moved, the last inch, warm fingers brushing her cheek. His breath caught a small, voluntary sound, leaving her startled, fragile, overwhelmed. He froze again, instantly. Lion, he breathed. If you want me to stop, don't, she whispered. That was all he needed. His palm cupped her cheek fully, thumb tracing the faint rise of her cheekbone with impossible gentleness. Her eyes shuddered shut. He leaned in, not enough to close the distance, not enough to scare her, but enough that she could feel his breath ghosting against her skin. I've imagined this, he mumbled. Every time you looked at me through the screen, every time you touched the keyboard, I wished. He cut himself off, a tiny shaky laugh breaking out of him. God, you have no idea what you're doing to me. Wan's fingers curled against his wrist, not pulling him away, grounding herself. I think I'm starting to, she whispered. Her voice fluttered closed, and for the first time since she arrived in his world, they were perfectly still, not afraid, not fine, just two people, one real, one not, sharing a moment neither of them had any right to want. As much as they did, Pierre's other hand hovered near hers, fingers trembling just slightly. Lion's breath caught as she felt the warmth of him radiating across the space between them, a small, ancient distance that wasn't meant to exist. Peter whispered, tilting his head, eyes soft, earnest. His gaze held hers, as though waiting for permission that she wasn't ready to give. I don't want to rush, he breathed, his forehead nearly touching hers. But tell me to stop. I swear I will. Just... His voice broke. Please don't. Pierre went still, his breath unsteady against her skin. His thumb brushing her cheek again, barely there, like he was afraid. Too much pressure would shatter her. Lion, he whispered. The way he said her name felt like a confession, his fingers tying around his wrist. Not pulling him closer, not pushing him away, not letting herself feel him. She opened her eyes. He were already on her side, wide, trembling, hopeful, in a way that almost hurt to look at. You're not rushing me, she mumbled. I know the difference. A quiet noise escaped him, something between relief and disbelief. His forehead gently pressed against hers, warming, trembling. I don't want to do anything you'd regret, he breathed. I won't, she said, softer than she meant to. Not this. Pierre exhaled shakily. His hand slid to the back of her jaw, the pads of his fingers tender as he traced the line of her neck. Still, he didn't close the distance. He was waiting for her, so she leaned in, just a fraction, just enough that their breaths mingled. Their lips hovered in that torturous, fragile space between wanting and daring. His fingers tightened around ever so slightly. Whine, a warning, a plea. She tilted her chin the smallest amount, her lips almost brushing his. It was all it took. Peter closed his last shiver of space, his lips touching hers in the softest, most careful kiss he ever felt. Warm, uncertain, relevant. He pulled back almost immediately, breath catching. What the... What's that? It was okay, she whispered, almost leaning forward again. This time, he met her halfway. The kiss deepened just enough to feel real. To feel chosen. Nothing hungry, nothing rushed. Just two people finally allowing themselves to touch the thing they'd been circling for so long. When they broke apart, her forehead rested against his, both of them breathing, like the room had tilted. Peter's voice was barely sound, and went that for so long. And she swallowed, cheeks warm, didn't think it would feel like this. Good, he mumbled, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear with trembling fingers. She nodded. And the first time since she stepped into this world, she didn't feel afraid. She just felt seen. Chapter 5, the next morning. Oh, it wasn't a dream. For a moment she laid still, eyes half open, the faint glow of early morning filtering through the thin curtains. Wine blinked up at the ceiling, and a slow, dizzy realization settled over her like a blanket. I'm still here, in Peter's house, in his world. And last night she pressed her fingers to her lips without meaning to. Her heartbeat gave a small, treacherous flutter as last night replayed in her head, the hesitation, the closeness, and then the kiss that still lingered on her lips, like warmth that hadn't faded. She exhaled softly. They separated afterwards, awkward in the sweetest way possible, retreating to different rooms, but the changed air from last night hadn't gone anywhere. It made the real air feel different now, changed, before she even got out of bed. One swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood carefully, as if any sudden movement might shake loose the delicate warmth lingering from the night before. The floorboards creaking softly beneath her feet as she stood. The house felt gentler this morning, quiet in a cozy way, like it was letting her have this moment. She stepped into the hallway, padding towards the kitchen, and the scent hit her almost immediately. Coffee and something a little sweet. Her chest fluttered. He's cooking. She could hear him humming, softly, almost shyly, as he moved around the kitchen, a sound that made her smile before she could stop herself. It was too precious, too domestic, too normal for someone like him, and it made her stomach do that tiny side twist game, the kind that she pretended not to notice. And for a brief second, she almost forgot that the darker part of this world, almost forgot about the things she read, the things she sang in game, the things that they talked about last night. Right now, it was just him, just Peter, and a morning that felt safer than it should. Lion stepped into the kitchen, and the slight waiting for her almost made her laugh out loud. Peter stood in the oven, shoving, shoulders slightly hunched, tongue poking out in concentration as he flipped something in the pan with utmost seriousness, like breakfast was a life or death mission. He turned at the sound of her footsteps, brightening instantly. "Good morning," he said, a little too quickly, like he's been rehearsing it. and the plate he set down in front of her, it actually looked good. Golden, neatly arranged. Not burnt, not soggy. None of the chaotic mess that she remembered from the game. She blinked at it, then at him. Are you supposed to be terrible at this? Peter froze, eyes widened, like she accused him of a crime, then fumbled for a response. I practice, he muttered, cheeks turning pink. Just not in the game. He laughed. His laugh slipped out before she could stop it. Her laugh slipped out before she could stop it. And the way he looked at her, like the sound alone made the whole effort worth it, made her chest warm all over again. Lan slid into the chair, still eyeing her plate, like it might vanish if she blinked too hard. She honestly couldn't believe how pretty it looked. Curiosity tugged at her. Before Peter could sit down, she lifted her fork and cut into the pancake. The soft texture gave away with a satisfying little bounce. She brought the bite into her lips, tasting it, letting the warmth and brightness settle on her tongue. Her brows lifted. Oh, it was actually good. Really good. Peter hovered near the sink as she took her spite, pretending to tidy up the counter, but very obviously watching her reaction out of the corner of his eye. Then she hummed in approval. His shoulders shot up in this tiny, voluntary jolt, like he'd just been zapped by happiness. It's really good, she said, round a smile. Peter immediately dropped the spoon he was holding. Really? His voice cracked halfway for the word, and he cleared his throat so aggressively it made it worse. Well, of course, I tried a lot. She bit back another laugh before the pink creeping all the way across his face was hard and ore. You're staring, she teased lightly. I'm not staring, he said, absolutely staring. Then realizing it, he spun around so fast he bumped his hip on the counter. Oh. Wyan covered her mouth to hide the giggle threatening to escape, but he made it hurt anyway. His shoulders slagged in embarrassed defeat. You're doing great, she assured softly. And he melted on the spot, just a quiet, flustered mess pretending he wasn't complete spin. Peter finally sat down across from her. Though the moment he met her eye, he immediately looked away again, cheeks still warm from earlier. He fiddled with the handle of his mug, turning into small, anxious circles, as if he were gathering courage in slow increments. So, he began carefully, I'm thinking about today. His fingers drummed once, nervously. Since you have clothes already, that's good. But you still don't have other things. Everyday stuff. She tilted her head. Like what? A jacket, a bag. Maybe some things you want. Things that are yours. He paused, swallowing. And I want to show you the town. The real one, not the game version. Her chest warmed at that. Not just the offer, but the sly hopefulness in his voice wasn't just being practical. He wanted her with him, out in the world, besides him. He tried not to smile too obviously, but curled out at the corner of his mouth anyway. I think you'll like it, he added softly. Then quieter. I would like to show you. Wen rested her elbows on the table, watching him with a soft smile that only made Peter squirm harder. You want to show me around, she repeated, a hint of playful warmth slipping into her voice. His shoulders tense. Well, yeah, if you want to. He added quickly, tripping over his words as if afraid she misunderstood. I just thought it might be nice for you and for, us. She let the silence stretch just long enough to make his eyes flicker in nervous panic before she answered. "I'd like that," she said simply. Pierre froze, then blinked like the world had physically stunned him. You would?" Her smile widened. "Yes, Peter, I would." His tired-mannered Brian, just a quiet, helpless beam, he tried and failed to hide behind the rim of his mug. He stood a little too fast, chair scraping softly against the floor. "Okay, great. We can go now if you want." She laughed under her breath as euphemism. "Let me just get ready," he said, pushing her chair. He nodded rapidly, almost knocking into the counter again. On his way to grab his keys, Lion slipped back into the room she slept in, gathering the folded clothes from the chair. As she changed, she caught her reflection in a small mirror perched on the dresser. Cheeks a little pink, eyes a little wider. Last night's kiss still set somewhere in her chest. Humming quickly, but the morning had added something new to it. When she stepped back into the hallway, she found Peter, almost waiting near the door, keys in hand, posture stiff, like he's been standing there for far too long. The moment he saw her, he strained even more, as if struck by the need to look prepared, composed, presentable. "You look..." He stopped, swallowed hard, and tried again. "You look nice." The way he said it, gentle, almost with absolute zero suave, made her smile warm and slow. "Thanks," she said. He fumbled with his keys, nearly dropping them, before managing to open the door. After you." She stepped past him into the cold morning air. The quiet world stretched out before them. The sky here was always a little strange, too still, too perfectly painted, but today it felt less eerie and more like a blank page, waiting for them to feel it. Pierce followed her outside, locking the door behind him. "Van's this way," he mumbled, motioning down the small path that led towards the edge of the property. They walked side by side down the narrow path, gravel crunching softly beneath their shoes. Pierre tried very hard to look casual, hands in his pockets, shoulders relaxed, but every few steps he sneaked a glance at her, then immediately looked away like he's been caught stealing something. Lion pretended not to notice, until one glance was a little too obvious. She arched a brow. "You okay over there?" Pierre nearly tripped over absolutely nothing. "Me? Yes, perfectly fine. Walking. She bit her lip, vying a smile. "You're very good at it." He let out a noise that might have been a laugh, might have been a choke, and definitely wasn't graceful. Peter stared down the gravel path towards the van, hands still shoveled in his pockets, in an awkward attempt to look confident. Lion followed until she nosed, his suddenly quickened his pace, almost as if he wanted to get there before she could look away around closely. That was when she saw it, a strange pull at the center of her vision. The well, tucked at the far edge of the yard, half shadowed by the crooked tree, weathered stones, moss creeping over the cracks, stones darkened by the time and damp. One slowed before being to. A small chill crawled up her arms. Pierre merely turned, his eyes wide, a flicker of panic breaking through his flustered facade. "Oh, The van's this way, he said too quickly, gesturing towards forward instead of towards the thing she was staring at. She looked at him. He looked anywhere but the well. Wyan toward the gaze from the well, her heartbeat setting a little as she met his eyes. He looked flustered, yes, but also relieved she hadn't lingered on it. It's okay, she said softly, a smile tugging at her lips. Pierre blinked, like Hannah expected kindness. He nodded once, shoulders easing just a fraction, though the faint tension in his jaw remained. Let's get going, he mumbled, motioning ahead towards the van, with a hand that lingered nervously near his pocket. The moment passed, like a cloud sliding past the sun, subtle, brief, and yet impossible to ignore. Wyan followed him anyway, stepping slightly down the path. The warmth of the morning slowly returning as her gaze fell on a familiar van weighing at the end of the yard. By the time they reached the van, he managed to regain at least a shiver of composure. He opened the passenger door for her with exaggerated politeness. Careful, he mumbled, like she might somehow fall climbing into the perfectly normal seat. She settled in, watching him circle around to the driver's side. His steps still a little too brisk with nerves, but when he slid behind the wheel and glanced over at her, something softened at his expression, a warm, earnest look that made the inside of her chest flutter. Ready, he asked. She nodded in return. Pierre started the engine, and a soft rumble filled the van, vibrating slightly beneath them. He kept one hand on the wheel, the other hovering near the gear shift, like he wasn't sure what to do with it. And Wyan couldn't help but notice. Do you drive this often? She asked, trying to sound casual, though the corner of her mouth tugged into a smile. Yeah, he said too quickly, then cleared his throat. I mean, I could drive. Not that as much as I probably should. Wyan laughed softly, the sound making him glance at her for half a second, then back at the road. Her eyes traced the familiar shapes of the trees outside, the way the light hit the tops of the branches in strange, almost pixel perfect patterns. The world looked sharper somehow, edges, lines to his exact, colors just a touch more vivid than real life should allow. Pierre caught her staring and felt heat creep up his neck. It's kind of like it looks in the game, I guess, he said, voice low, but not exactly. It's real, more real. She tilted her head, eyes soft, like, I like it, she mumbled. The words made him swallow. His grip on the wheel tightened for a moment. They drove in a comfortable silence for a few minutes, broken only by the dull hum of the engine and the occasional rustle of leaves out against the van. Wyan felt her chest ease, her earlier flutter returning, a quiet, warm anticipation of the places they'll see it together. Pierre stole a quick glance at her as the van hummed along the path. So, you still remember everything from the game? He asked, voice tentative. Wyan grinned, leaning against her seat. Of course, every little glitch, every annoying NPC, every spot I had to redo a dozen times. His shoulders relaxed a little, though a faint pink dusted his ears. Yeah, I notice. You get very invested, he said, careful with his words, like he didn't want to sound teasing, but almost couldn't resist entirely. I do, she admitted, smirking, and you are kind of mean to me in the game sometimes. Pierre froze mid-turn on the wheel. I am not. His voice cracked just slightly. Wyan laughed softly at his fluster. Okay, fine, maybe a little, she teased. Eyes sparkling. But it was funny, so I forgave you. He exhaled, half relieved, half exasperated, and the corners of his mouth lifted into a small, shy smile. I'll take that as a compliment, he muttered, though his gaze flickered towards her again, betraying how pleased he was. The van carried them forward, engine low, steady, the soft banter wrapping around them like a warm, quiet bubble. After about half an hour of off-and-on banter, the van rolled to a gentle stop. One leaned back in her chair with a soft sigh, watching the familiar shapes of the town spread out before them. Pierre glanced at her from the driver's side, a playful smirk tugging at his lips. You know, he said, voice low, you make it really hard to concentrate when you keep smiling like that. Wyan raised a brow, grinning. Oh, am I distracting you? Maybe a little, he mid. The corners of his mouth twitching as he fought to keep his hand steady on the wheel. It's annoying, but in a good way. She laughed, shaking her head, letting the warmth of the moment settle between them. Peter opened his door, gesturing for her to step out first. Shall we? He asked, still a little awkward, still a little entirely himself. Wyan stepped out of the van first, letting the morning air wash over her. The town stretched ahead, quiet and still, but familiar in a way that made her chest tighten with nostalgia. Pierre followed, closing the van's door behind him. It looks the same, right? He asked, a mixture of pride and uncertainty in his voice. Wyan's eyes wide up. It does, almost exactly, but better. She tilted her head, taking in the details, the way the sunlight hit the roofs, the subtle simmer of the river that ran through the town, the little shop signs swinging gently in the breeze. Pierre smiled, watching her reaction. I guess you noticed everything, he said quietly. She grinned, a teasing spark in her eyes. Of course, I'm a pro at remembering things. He laughed softly, shaking his head, and here I thought you were just trying to make me look bad. Wyan chuckled, stepping forward and brushing past him lightly as they walked down the familiar street. The warmth of the morning, the playful banter, and the strange comfort of revisiting a world she thought she knew made the day feel full of promise, even if she knew, somewhere deep down, nothing here was as safe as it seemed. They walked down the sidewalk. One gaze drifted from the storefront to the storefront. It was surreal. Every building, every color, every little detail looked exactly like the background she clicked through 1,000 times. The flower shop with pastel awning, the tiny cafe with mismatched tables outside, even the faded mural on the side of the bookstore. She knew them all. It's so weird, she said softly, smiling to herself. I've seen all of this before, but only as pictures, still frames. Pierce shoved his hands deeper in his pockets, glancing at her with a shy little smile. Yeah, well, it's different when you're actually here. Well, it's moving. One laughed lightly. You mean when you're moving? He paused mid-step, cheeks going pink. I wasn't trying to make it about me. Too late, she bumped his shoulders gently. his shoulder gently. You're part of all of these scenes. Kind of hard not to notice. Peter looked away, smiling in that helpless, flustered way she quickly getting addicted to. I guess I don't mind you noticing. That earned him a warm, fluttered laugh she couldn't hold in. They walked a little further down the quiet street. One taking every storefront with bright, curious eyes. The world felt familiar in a nostalgic way, as if she were walking through the screenshots brought to life. Peter watched her more than he wanted to watch the road. The soft smile on his face, drawing his attention like gravity. You really like it here, he said quietly. Wang glanced at him. Surprise. I do. It's strange, but nice. Better than I imagined. Peter hummed, nodding slowly. You look cute when you're excited about stuff. She stopped mid-step, turning to him with wide eyes. Cute? He shrugged, trying very hard to look casual despite the mistakable pink swizing his neck. Well, I mean, it's true. You get a little spark in your eyes. It's kind of nice to see in person. Wine blinked, her heart doing that treacherous little jump. Peter! He cleared his throat, looking away, but smiling. Just saying. You don't have to get all shy about it. I'm not shy, she insisted, even though she absolutely was. Peter mumbled, amused, warning his voice. If you say so. Juan looked away before he could see how flustered she was this time. Well, she absolutely knows it anyway. And Peter, he looked very pleased with himself. They fell back into step, the street stretching ahead in a cozy, familiar layout. Juan tried to focus on her surroundings again, but the warmth in her eyes, her cheeks, kept pulling his attention back to Peter's words. Cute. He called her cute, out loud on purpose. Peter caught the way she kept glancing ahead, pretending to be fascinated by a very ordinary mailbox, and his smile tugged wider. You don't have to ignore me, you know, he said lightly. I'm not ignoring you, she shot back, a little too quickly. His voice dripped into soft tease. You're walking like someone who just got complicated and doesn't know what to do with herself. She nearly tripped. Peter! He laughed under his breath. The second warm and a little smug. It's cute, he repeated, quieter this time, like he didn't want anyone but her to hear it. Whiten's pulse fluttered again, and she looked over just in time to catch him glancing at her, really looking not shy or nervous, just soft, affectionate. The world around them seemed to slow. Quiet buildings, the soft hum of the morning breeze, the way Peter's hand drifted just an inch closer to hers as they walked, not touching, just close enough to feel. As they round the next corner, the scent of a frying bacon drifted through the air, warm and unspeakable. Wine blinked, her recognition immediately. Wait, is that? Peter nodded, rubbing the back of his neck. The neon light sign flickered above the windows, exactly the way it had on her screen, flickering just a bit too slowly, like someone had animated it frame by frame and gotten lazy in the middle. The sight made her inhale sharply, nostalgia mixing with a strange, fluttery anxiety. Pierce stepped a little closer, lowering his voice. Just, maybe keep your head down a bit while we're here. Lance frowned softly. Why? Well, he glanced at the diner, then back at her. Before being careful with his words. People here, NPCs, they kind of recognize you. They don't know what to do with that. She blinked. Recognize me? He smiled darkly. You're the player. The one who made the choices. They remember faces different here. Wan swallowed. A chill brushed the back of her neck. The warmth between them didn't disappear. It just shifted. Just on a careful weight, Pierre nudged her hand with his knuckles. Subtle but grounding. You'll be fine. I'm here. Pierre pushed open the diner door, the bell above giving a cheery jiggle that didn't match the sudden hush that followed. Wan stepped in behind him, keeping her head slightly bowed the way he suggested. The diner looked exactly like she remembered. Red blues, seats, chrome edges, a counter filled with old-fashioned stools, except the people inside weren't frozen sprites anymore. They were moving, talking, looking. A few customers glanced up. Their faces weren't hostile, just startled, like they were seeing the ghost of someone who they've only ever read about. One man blinked at her a little too long, like his mind was trying to process a memory, then didn't quite belong to him. Pierre shifted, stepping slightly in front of her, subtly guiding her towards a booth. Just sit here, he mumbled, his hand hovering near her back, but not touching. They won't bother you. Wan slid into the booth, her heart beating a little faster than she wanted to admit. They're staring. They're not. They won't for long, Peter said, sliding in across from her. His voice was gentle but firm. People don't usually get to see you. Not like this. She swallowed. Does that mean they know who I am? Pierre's eyes flickered towards the counter, then back at hers. Not exactly. They just feel it, like a familiarity they can't place. Then he softly leaned in slightly. Here, you're safe, I promise. Wine was just settling into the booth when the kitchen door swung open, and a tall figure stepped out, drying their hands on the towel. She recognized them instantly. The relaxed stance, the calm eyes, the dark hair tied loosely on the nape of their neck. TK. Her breath caught quietly in her throat, not in fear, but genuine, unexpected warmth. She had never seen them outside the screen before, yet here they were, unmistakably themselves. TK scanned the diner the same way they always seemed to in the game, steady, observant, like they were taking a mental snapshot of the room. Until their eyes met hers, they froze, blinking once, as if matching her face to a memory that wasn't technically theirs. The voice was smooth, thoughtful. Lion, right? Lion nodded, a small smile forming. Yeah, hi. TK's expression softened instantly. Wow, you're real. A small, amused breath escaped them. We're always heard about you. Your choices, your presence. Pierre relaxed just next to them, shoulders easing in a way that told Lion there was nothing uneasy between them. TK, this isn't the real deal, he said with a grin. Told you she wasn't intimidating. TK snored softly and never said she was intimidating. They glanced back at Lion, curiosity, warm rather than wary. Just didn't expect to see the person behind all of it. It's really nice to meet you, Lion said. You too, TK replied with a gentle nod. Welcome to the diner. If you need anything, just let me know. They slid back behind the counter, weaving a strange, uncanny delight of meeting an old friend as a real person. A moment later, TK returned, not with the menus, but with 2 glasses of water. They set them on the table with practiced ease, offering Lion a warm, almost annoying smile. How long morning? A bit, Lion mid, touched by the simple gesture. Thank you. No problem, TK chapped the edge of the table with their knuckles. I'll be around. Peter nodded. Thanks, TK. As he moved back to the counter, TK gave Wyan one curious glance, just quietly fascinated, like meeting a character from a story who stepped out of the pages. Wyan let out a breath she didn't realize what she was holding. That was surreal. Peter folded his arms on the table, weighing in slightly. TK's good people. They wondered what you'd be like. Wyan's cheeks warmed. I hope I'm not disappointing anyone. Peter's eyes softened. Sincerity replaced his usual nerves. You're better than they imagine, he said quietly. Wyan looked towards the counter again, watching TK move easily through the small diner. The familiarity between them and Peter lingered in her mind. The comfort, the casual patter, the way Peter spoke about them, like someone he gently trusted. So you and TK, she said, curiosity tugging at her voice. You're really close, huh? Peter shrugged, smiling a little. We spend a lot of time together when the game isn't running. We're all kind of stuck in the same place. Same downtime. Same weird pauses between scenes. She blinked. So, you all just hang out? Off script? Pretty much, Peter said with a soft laugh. It's not glamorous or anything, but yeah, TK's easy to be around. So's Lucy. Dawn, too, on his good days. Wyan let that sink in. Characters she only ever sing separately, in isolated routes. In compartmentalized scenes was actually someone who knew each other, worked together, lived together between scripts. That's so strange, she muttered. I always saw you all alone, never together. Never like, she glanced at TK, who gave her a small wave before returning them to their work. Like this. Pierce smirked. We're not just puppets waiting for you to click the next line. He nudged her foot gently under the table. Though I guess you're kind of used to having the control. Juan rolled her eyes, but her smile gave her away. I'm not controlling. Peter leaned back, unbelievably pleased with himself. Whatever helps you sleep at night. Wyan watched TK for a moment as they refilled the coffee mugs on the counter, the soft clank of the ceramic grounding the strange comfort of the diner. A thought tugged at her, one she tried not to dwell on, but couldn't ignore how TK was standing right there. Peter, she mumbled. He hummed, looking up at her. She hesitated and glanced towards TK again. And some of the routes, the bad ones, I chose things that, her fingers tightened around her glass. TK didn't make it. Peter's expression softened, understanding immediately. Before she could change her mind, Wyan slid out of the booth and approached the counter. TK woke up, head tilting curiously as she stopped beside them. Hey, TK said gently. You doing okay? Wyan swallowed. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you something. She paused, cheeks heating. In the darker routes, the ones I shouldn't have picked, things happened to you. Bad things. And I'm really sorry. TK blinked once, twice, then set down the coffee pot with a soft clank. Oh, they said quietly, but not unkindly. Those. One nodded, guilt picking at her chest. I knew it wasn't real. If I knew it was real, but it still feels like I don't know wrong. TK leaned one hip against the counter, folding their arms in a casual, thoughtful way. When the player's choice were never your fault. Our scripts run because someone out there clicked the button. That doesn't make you the villain. Their smile was small, but warm. Besides, I'm standing here, aren't I? Wan let out a shaky laugh she hadn't realized she had been holding back. Behind her, Peter's voice floated over, gentle and amused. I told you myself that TK wouldn't be mad. TK smiled. Mad? No. Confused? Why you kept picking the worst endings? Absolutely. Wan groaned, covered her face. Please don't tease me. But TK laughed softly, the warm, forgiving kind, and nudged her arm. It's okay, really. Wan groaned softly as TK finished teasing her, and before she could recover, she felt someone step up behind her at the counter. Peter. She didn't have to see his face to know he was wearing a smug little smile he always tried and failed to hide. So he drawled, amusement thick in his voice. Intentionally tried for the bad endings. Wan whipped around, scandalized. I did not intentionally pick them. Peter, TK lifted an eyebrow. You picked the option that gets me, well, not alive anymore. More than once. Wan spluttered. I panicked. Those choices go by fast. Peter leaned closer, grinning. Uh-huh. Sure, totally an accident. It was, she insisted, cheeks heating. TK nodded solemnly. We believe you. A beat, mostly. TK, Wyan groaned. Peter let out a warm laugh, bright and almost boyish. This is the best day I ever had. You're impossible, she muttered. Still cute, though, he said automatically, the kind of compliment that slipped out before he could stop it. Wan froze for half a second, heat jumping, and TK's quiet chuckle softening the moment. TK tapped the counter beside her, tone shifting from playful to somewhat gentler. Hey, before you two go, can I tell you something? Wan nodded. The world notices things, TK said softly, but not the way yours does, not logically. More like ripples, feelings, connections. Their eyes flickered briefly towards Peter, whose expression softened despite pretending not to listen. Just be honest with each other to make everything else easier. Wan felt her chest warm. Thank you, TK. They smiled any time. She stepped back towards Peter, who strained like he wasn't just definitely listening. Everything okay? He asked lightly. Wan nodded. Smile soft. Yeah, everything's good. Wan nodded and smile soft. Yeah, everything's good. Peter held the diner door open for her on their way out. The little bell jingling overhead as TK lifted a hand in a casual goodbye. Don't let him spoil you too much, they called with a grin. Wan laughed under her breath. No promises. Peter's eyes went pink as he shut the door behind them. They, didn't mean anything by that. I know, she bumped his shoulder lightly. But you're spoiling me. He ducked his head, but she saw the tiny, proud smile tug at the corner of his mouth. I just want you to have what you need, he mumbled. You deserve that. They walked a few steps down the sidewalk before he pointed to a small shop at the corner. Its sign painted in soft pastels. The windows full of neat displays. It looked exactly like a general store like the general store screen she used to pick through for background once. Except now it was real. Right in front of her. There, Peter said, trying to sound casual, but failing. We'll get you a jacket, maybe some basics, stuff you want. And you're sure it's okay? She asked gently. His voice was soft, almost shy. Yeah, I want to. Wan felt the warm little flutter again, stronger this time. As she followed him towards the shop, the morning air buzzed faintly in anticipation and the sweetness of being cared for. The bell above the shop chimed softly as they stepped inside. the air filled with a faint scent of clean cotton and old wool. The place was small but cozy, shelves lined with folded sweaters, jackets hung neatly in racks, a small wall of toiletries and essentials tucked in the corner. Juan's eyes whined a little. This was way nicer than I expected. Peter rubbed the back of his neck, smiling shyly. Yeah, the background art in the game didn't really do it justice. Before she could answer, the shopkeeper, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a gentle, slightly too perfect smile, looked up from behind the counter. Her eyes drifted to YN, and just like the diner earlier, she paused for a heartbeat too long. Something like recognition flickered in her expression, but no, not the logical kind. More like deja vu. Hello, the woman said warmly. Welcome. Lion swallowed, suddenly hyper-aware of how people here seemed to see her, not fully understanding who she was, but feeling something familiar anyway. Pierce stepped closer, brushing her arm lightly with his. Don't worry, he mumbled. She's nice, promise. Lion nodded, laying his presence steady her. They wandered to the clothing section, and Pierre tried very hard to act casual, pulling out a few jackets, some soft-looking sweaters, even a scarf, his confidence fading quickly as he realized he had no idea what she actually liked. This one's nice, he said, holding up a dark blue jacket. They frowned. Actually, maybe not. Maybe the color's weird. Or maybe it's good. I don't know. I'm bad at this. Wen laughed softly, taking the jacket gently from his hands. Peter's cute. And so are you when you're panicking. He froze. I'm not panicking. Yes, he was. She smiled, brushing her fingers over the fabric. I like it. Peter went absolutely still and then lit up like someone had just handed him a victory screen he didn't expect to win. Then, yeah, good. Let's get you a few more. As Wyan quickly moved along the rack, touching the soft fabrics and colors she liked, Peter drifted a little behind her, pretending to browse, but really watching her reactions with quiet, focused attention. Every time she paused at something for more than a second, his eyes lit up. Then something caught his attention. A small display near the corner, tucked almost out of sight, held a few simple accessories. Among them was a simple silver chain with a tiny charm shaped like a star. Not flashy, not dramatic, just soft, simple, and quietly pretty. Without thinking too hard, Peter picked it up. The charm shimmered faintly behind his fingers, and something about it felt right. He turned his attention. He walked back to her, tapping her shoulder gently. Hey, he mumbled, voice unusually soft. Try this. Wyan turned, and when she saw the necklace held carefully in his hand, her breath caught. For me? She asked. Surprise! Pierce nodded, cheeks tugging, warm, determined not to make a big deal out of it. Yeah, I thought it would suit you. She took it from him carefully. The chain stood against her skin. It's beautiful, she whispered. Why is this one? He hesitated for a few moments, then shrugged with a faint, shy smile. I don't know, it reminded me of you. The air fluttered as her chest turned into a full somersault. In that way, she teased, raising an eyebrow. Go ahead, explain. Peter smirked, leaned forward just a tiny bit. Well, he tapped the little star charm on his finger. It's small, looks delicate, but it shines a lot brighter than it realizes. Lan stared at him, stunned, flustered, too warm all at once. Peter grinned wider at her silence. See, you're blushing again. They made their way to the counter, Wen still holding the necklace carefully in her hands, like it was something fragile. Pierre hovered a little too close beside her, trying not to look proud of himself, and failing spectacularly. The shopkeeper looked up as they approached. Her eyes drifted to Wen, to the necklace, then to Peter, and something flickered across her expression. Not suspicion, more like deja vu. Friend with curiosity, as if she were watching a scene hinted in at some invisible script, but never witnessed in person. That's a lovely choice, she said warmly. Very fitting. Wen smiled shyly. Thank you. Pierre cleared his throat, reaching into his pocket. We're, getting it. We? Wen echoed, eyebrows lifting. Pierre froze. I'm getting it. For you. If you want it. Only if you want it. Not if you don't want it. Wen gently touched his arms. Pierre, I want it. His tired face went warm, but he handed the necklace to the shopkeeper with a little exhale, as if she's just saved him from spontaneous combustion. The shopkeeper rang it up, though her movements were slow, almost distracted. Funny, she mumbled, not quite to herself. Feels like this moment was supposed to happen. Wen blinked. What do you mean? But the woman only smiled, the soft NPC smile that didn't answer anything. Take good care of it, she said, placing this necklace into Wen's hands. And of each other. The shopkeeper's humming faded into the quiet of the little shop. Soft and familiar in a way Wen couldn't place. She held the necklace a little tighter, the charm cool against her palm. Maybe something about the moment felt scripted, or maybe remembered. She opened her mouth to ask again, but Peter gently touched her arm. Come on, he mumbled. Let's see the rest of the town, she nodded, though a small, unexcusable shiver worked its way down her spine. I think I'm going to end it here for today. If you guys want me to, I will finish the other 2 chapters in this story another day. But I'm going to put the link to the fanfic in the description and in the pinned comments. If you like my content, please consider subscribing and liking the video, and I'll see you guys next time. And please check out the fanfic and give the offer all the love, and I'll see you guys next time.